down, other nations in the region back down. That's the cycle they're used to. So they fully expected when they fired on ships traveling through the strait that America would just go back to the negotiating table and say, hey, let's work through this. Things happen. We're not going to go back to major combat operations. That is what they have always gotten. When they push, nobody pushes back. When they break their word, nobody retaliates. They have met in President Trump a leader of the world's #1 superpower who has finally broken that cycle. And so the regime is learning that when you violate your deal with President Trump, you pay a price beyond anything you can imagine. And if we keep going down this road, if the regime keeps choosing the path of conflict, they're not going to have a capability of being able to wage war. And they understand that, nor will they have an economy to support a war machine. That's the choice they face. It's never been clearer.
I don't think they could rebuild in 10 years, as the president said. Let me go back to what I was talking to Brandon Gill about. You now have the radicals now ruling the Democratic Party. They would like to abolish the Senate, the presidency. They want statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. They'd like to abolish private business, even, take away people's private property. They want open borders. They want empty prisons, defund, dismantle police, no bail laws, abolish ICE, and, then promise a cradle-to-grave, home-to-the-tomb utopia that all of us know will never work. But they seem to now dominate the party, but for one guy named John Fetterman.
Yes. The Democrat Party has embraced not only socialism, they've embraced communism. Straight up, outright, full-throated communism. They are now electing candidates who want to take private industry over, give it to the government, suspend the Constitution, abolish the Senate, abolish borders, abolish prisons, abolish jails, abolish the jury system, abolish our entire way of life. The contrast has never been more clear. There's President Trump, the Republican Party, and American First, or there are the crazy communist lunatics who will steal everything you know and love in this nation, and they will never, ever let you have it back.
See, this is why you will never be banned from this network or this show. It's just priceless. We appreciate you, Stephen Miller. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, part of a big testifying moment here before the Senate at the moment that also includes Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. They are testifying right now about the Appropriations Committee and the administration's supplemental funding request. It's an $87 billion request, and it includes $67 billion to replenish weapons stockpiles used in the Middle East conflict, which could possibly include the manufacturing of what you see on, not what you see on the screen, but what you're about to see on the screen, hypersonic missiles. This is a weapon Russia and China have, but right now America does not. Now, if we can show you the one that you've on your screen, it's made by a company the Pentagon is turning to, a defense tech startup that says it can help refill the weapons coffers by producing advanced missiles fast and on the cheap. That company is Castilian. Its hypersonic missile, it's called the Blackbeard, travels at Mach 5+, which is more than 5 times the speed of sound, and it can be maneuvered during the flight. The company has already landed contracts with the Navy and has raised nearly $500 million in funding. Joining me now at a Fox Business exclusive, Castilian founder and CEO, Brian Hargis. Brian, explain to our viewers what the Blackbeard can do. It's not ready yet, but we don't have a hypersonic missile in our coffers yet in America, correct?
Well, Liz, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is a great moment for us to explain what we're doing and why it's important. And so you're absolutely right. So the country is just starting to field a very expensive but very capable weapon system. Castilian is focused on a very different approach. So we're focused on delivering a very affordable, high-scale Blackbeard hypersonic weapon. And when we talk about scale, we're talking thousands of units per year in production, and that's just the start, at prices that are sub $500,000 per missile. So incredibly inexpensive in comparison to the alternatives.
Sub $500,000 missiles.
Yes.
The ones right now cost a lot more.
Oh, by 10 to 50x, absolutely. And so when you look at why that is important, when you look at what is currently happening, the ability to deter future conflicts is going to come from having enough depth of what they call a magazine to be able to deter those future conflicts. And production is the key to that. Castellian is focused on production.
Now, you've broken ground on a plant. It's a 1,000-acre production facility in New Mexico where you would be churning these things out. Can I just ask, how do you get from 50 million a hypersonic missile down to 500,000?
Well, this is really interesting because this is one of the things that I learned from my time at SpaceX. It turns out that if you focus from the very early stages of the design of a system, in our case, a hypersonic weapon, and you focus on cost as a design criteria, you focus on the supply chain, you focus on who's manufacturing it, and you care from the very beginning. So if one of our engineers, for example, comes with a working design, but that design is incredibly expensive or hard to produce, they have to restart their work. That's not acceptable. And so when you keep those things in mind from the very beginning, you can produce costs that are much, much lower than what is traditionally accepted.
Let's explain to people the difference between ballistic missiles and hypersonic missiles. Ballistic missiles launch and they go in an arc at a straight target, which between the time it's launched and the time it gets to this so-called target, the target could have moved. Hypersonic, and correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's 100% correct.
Okay, hypersonic goes much faster and it actually can maneuver.
That's exactly right. And so the reason that these weapons like Blackbeard are so necessary for deterring future conflicts, as you mentioned, a ballistic trajectory follows an arc like you throw a softball. It's very predictable, so therefore it can be shot down. A hypersonic is flying very high in the atmosphere. It's maneuverable. It goes extremely far, and everybody talks about the speed as being what's important, but the real key is that it gets there quickly and it goes extremely far. It's hard to intercept. That's why this is going to be the future of capabilities for weapon systems that the country needs to deter future conflicts.
These are not GPS guided. They are?
All weapons usually have the ability to get satellite-aided navigation, but they have many other means of getting to the target.
The reason I ask that is both Ukraine and Russia, and I think Iran, have figured out how to block and how to scramble GPS signals, and therefore that makes these less reliable.
You need to have other means to get to the target because, again, it's all about your adversary needs to know that you could do something about what they are doing, and you need to be successful in your mission. And so your weapon system needs to have those capabilities. Blackbeard has those in there from the start.
I just want to go back to the cost. And as you said, you worked at SpaceX. It was a rocket ship startup way back in the early 2000s. So you figured out how to do, champagne taste on a beer budget. And I use the term beer budget because the Wall Street Journal had an article and the headline compared about you being able to put together this very, very inexpensive missile, a hypersonic missile on a beer budget, which I found really interesting. But that leads to the question, where are you getting the components? Because a lot of components are made in China. And doesn't it neutralize the value of a hypersonic missile to be, let's just say, used as a deterrent against China, maybe invading Taiwan or something like that? By using Chinese components, they could cut off our supply chain.
So obviously we can't have Chinese components in our weapon system. At all. And more importantly, you need to have a robust supply chain knowing what could happen. And so from our perspective, and one of the things that we've done quite well at the company is to evaluate our supply chain and leverage other aspects of commercial industry, say like automotive supply chain, which is much more robust than aerospace.
You are one of a whole bunch of really fascinating military and defense startups. Anduril comes to mind. We've had a whole bunch of them on our show. The Pyrus Shield, AI, Saranac, Mach Industries. I look at this and I think, awesome. But man, you are going up against a massive military complex. Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop Grumman. And they claim, yeah, those guys are smart, but they can't scale up quickly. What do you say to that?
Well, we absolutely can. We've proven it in the past to other companies. We have a phenomenal workforce. But I think most importantly, this administration is not only, when you talked about the opening with the supplemental, they're trying to replenish what has been currently expended. but they recognize that the only way out of where we're at today is to invest in these new type of companies. Modernize. And companies that can deliver these capabilities at a much lower cost at a much greater scale. And so the administration is clearing the path with this acquisition reform to allow companies such as ours and others to be successful.
So you think you can bypass a painfully slow process that the bigger defense companies go through?
We don't get to bypass any of the process that they do. And for example, we are integrating Blackbeard with F-18, HIMARS. We have to do all of the same standards that anybody else has to do. However, one of the unique aspects of the program is that when you look back at what happened in the Apollo era, it was industry and government working hand in hand to achieve an outcome.
So how is the Pentagon helping you to achieve that?
Oh, we have experts, government experts on every type of missile subsystem you can think of. They're clearing the way so that we can go out and do rapid testing and ensure that Blackbeard meets the safety standards that it needs to meet.
Okay, so you've got some strapped already on F-18s, or you're going to strap them on?
I can't speak to the specific timeline, but very soon. We are intending to field next year.
Well, Brian, we're going to have you back before then.
I'm excited.
Our viewers are fascinated with startup defense companies, which eventually go public. I would imagine that that's the goal.
That's 100% correct. It's not our immediate term goal. We want to get this capability fielded for the country. We're going to continue to do what we say we're going to do, but we will get there eventually.
Blackbeard. Okay, can the next iteration be Redbeard?
We'll take that under advisement.
Thanks, Brian, very much.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck to you and the team at Castilian.
Appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell. Thank you for joining. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The markets are open. The S&P 500 is trading at 7,503. I have a year-end target of 7,800. 17 is the VIX, so everything's stable. The euro is trading at 114. The Japanese yen is trading at 163.03. Bitcoin's trading at just below 66,000. Oil is trading at 86.52. That's the big story. Last night it did climb. Brent and WTI have been climbing somewhat. Now, right now, it started to retrace, and it is below the 87.23 level for the Fib sequence. So that is a key resistance level. All right. The question is, can it stay above there? It doesn't look like it can. So I still have this trading range of about 79.80 to about 87.23. But we're at the high end of that trading range. Now, people are thinking that the conflict in the Middle East will continue and get worse, especially with the Houthis. So oil is somewhat elevated. The question is, will it continue to drift above that 87.23 and stay there and create a whole new trading range where now you'd have about 87 to 94 trading range? That's a big question mark. Natural gas is trading at 2.931. That's a little bit high on the trading range, but because of what's going on in the Middle East, it's elevated. It really should be trending towards 2.6. I'm still shorting natural gas. Now, Gush has been drifting upward, which is an ETF for energy stocks, energy exploration companies. So that's trading at 40.28. I did some trading in the pre-market with Gush and closed it out. So I made a little bit of money on that. DRIP is the inverse of Gush, and that's trading at 40.17. And I'm looking at SSG. That's trading at 12.44. It's 44. No, 64. 12.64. That's shorting the semiconductor industry. The big question is when these tech companies start having their their earnings announcements today, what's the CapEx? What's their beat on earnings? If they fail on beating the earnings or just barely beat, most likely tech sector is going to sell off. And I'm suspecting that the semiconductor industry will too. Another key data point is what's the CapEx? Are they pulling back or are they spending more? If they're spending more, then people will still think that there's a little bit more juice in this whole AI bubble, and SSG will go down. But if the CapEx is starting to pull back, then most likely there's going to be a sell-off with semiconductors. Another big key moment what will happen in South Korea tomorrow, or tonight, really tonight. And when that happens, is the Kospi index going to sell off or go up? If it sells off, then most likely that will lead to further semiconductor decline in the US session. So it really depends on what's happening with some of these earnings and what happens in the Kospi tonight. All right, with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. These videos are for free, so please help support the work by sharing the links, being a paid member to my Patreon channel, purchasing the great products that I have. Or you can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. But all these videos are for free. I tell you how to get healthy, and I tell you what I'm doing and how to try to make some money on the news. Now, get the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will help to boost up your immune system and help with brain function. Most people don't take enough magnesium to help with brain function, so it's really important. Vitamin C and magnesium helps with your immune system, helps with your skin, and helps with brain function. Another great supplement if you're 40 years of age or older, take the vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain, so you have more energy, more ATP. It revs up your cellular metabolism, and it protects your neurons with vitamin B12. This is really important if you're 40 years of age or older. Olive leaf extract, dual purpose. It helps with the immune system and the cardiovascular system. It helps to bring down inflammation. It helps you to control your lipid profile. It helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels so you have less plaque formation. Very important to take every day. Olive leaf extract. And omega-3 brings down inflammation, helps with the lipid profile, and helps to reduce the stickiness of your red blood cells so you're not overclotting. Really important. So please go to my store, get the omega-3, the vitamin C and magnesium, the magnesium and zinc, the B vitamins, and the olive leaf extract. It's a great product. It's dual purpose. And that way you're helping with your cardiovascular system, you're helping with your immune system. So please go to my store, use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, with that said, let's continue on with the news. Now, there's this big deal that's happening between the United States and Saudi Arabia where they're going to go into peaceful nuclear energy. Well, wait a minute here. Why would you need peaceful nuclear energy if you have so much hydrocarbon energy? This is the first step for them going nuclear because they can work with enrichment. And MDS did say that if Iran goes nuclear, if Iran ends up getting a nuclear weapon, that there would be an arms race between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And I think this is the beginnings of it right here.
The United States has reportedly cut a landmark nuclear deal that could shift the balance of power in the Middle East, not with Iran, but Saudi Arabia. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal report that President Trump has signed off on an agreement that could allow Saudi Arabia to build a civilian nuclear program and eventually enrich their own uranium. But this is likely to spark controversy inside the U.S. with lawmakers who oppose proliferation in the Middle East, not to mention Israel, who might be opposed to the whole idea of this. Let's get to Betsy Klein live at the White House.
Now, for all those people that are America First pacifists, the America First pacifists, do you think in the Middle East, when you have more people, more countries, especially affiliated with the Islam as a religion, more of these countries are getting, quote, peaceful nuclear power capability, having their own plants that can lead to enrichment for nuclear weapons? Do you think that the whole world is safer now? So the America First pacifists actually led to this problem. We have to absolutely make sure that that region is stabilized. This deal with Saudis is stupid. Stupid. We should never have done this. But we should have also destroyed the IRGC. But the America for pacifists don't want that. So because we didn't destroy the IRGC, MDS and Saudi Arabia feels as though they have to do an arms race now. Once again, the pernicious activity of certain geopolitical policies can lead to worse outcomes down the road. By us not destroying Iran led to actually nuclear arms race in the Middle East now. Good job, America pacifists. Good job. Stupid.
Be a big deal, Betsy.
That's right, John. New reporting in both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal on what could be a major win for Saudi Arabia from the Trump administration that could be announced as soon as today. President Trump, according to the Wall Street Journal, has formally signed off on this deal that would allow Saudi Arabia to have a civilian nuclear program. Now, this could allow Saudi Arabia to make the material necessary to build a nuclear weapon. And CNN reported last week that this agreement tentatively would allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium without enacting the international safeguards to prevent nuclear weapons development. Now, the New York Times has described these concessions made to Saudi Arabia as significant. And as you mentioned, this is likely to be controversial both across the globe and here on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers on both sides of the aisle will be raising a lot of questions. This agreement has to be sent to Congress for a review. It is possible that it could face a disapproval resolution that could ultimately prevent it from going into effect if they have a veto-proof majority, which seems unlikely as of now. But experts have raised questions about what safeguards the U.S. is putting on the deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was pressed on that by our colleague Kit Maher just a moment ago. Listen.
Well, I'm not going to opine directly on that agreement. We're going to put out, even when the moment is appropriate, we'll put out that in writing. We have to do it with Congress anyways, so we'll certainly do it publicly. But suffice it to say, the U.S. is not going to reach any agreement with any country in the world that leads to the risk of proliferation.
Now, this agreement, according to the Wall Street Journal, would last 30 years and provide tens of billions of dollars to U.S. companies that could help shore up Saudi Arabia's nuclear infrastructure. Now, this deal really bolsters U.S.-Saudi relations after some strain due to President Trump's war with Iran, but it really underscores how the Trump administration has taken steps to shore up this key alliance, John.
Yeah, there have been discussions in the past administrations that would have required some kind of diplomatic concessions from Saudi Arabia. They don't appear to be part of these discussions right now. We're going to have to wait and see the final details here, but this would be a major development. Standing by for much more on this. Betsy Klein, thank you very much. The U.S. is entering into a deal with Saudi Arabia to create a nuclear program, a civilian nuclear energy program there, though that might eventually allow the Saudis to enrich their own uranium here. Why is that such a big deal?
Now, this is a deal that was discussed in the Biden administration. It's been in the works. It's something that Saudi Arabia has wanted for a long time. And when you look at the energy situation that Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries are facing, eventually the oil will run out and they need different capabilities. So on one hand, it's a way for the U.S. and Saudi Arabia to increase their business ties, especially at a time when, the U.S. is asking a lot of Saudi Arabia in terms of being under fire from Iran, especially with this new pressure from the Houthis. On the other hand, it opens the gateway. A civilian nuclear program gives the country all of the capabilities it needs, so it's not a big leap to get to nuclear weapons. And that's going to be a concern for people who are worried about the whole area running away with, arming with nuclear weapons because of the threat of Iran.
You came out opposed to selling F-35s to Turkey, and the grounds you stated at the time were because of security concerns in the region and also because of some of Turkey's foreign policy positions toward Israel. Given that, how do you feel about giving Saudi Arabia a nuclear program?
You know, the Saudis are really the stable balance in the Middle East between, of course, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Turkey. The problem that I have with Turkey is you just continue to see this rhetoric, this anti-Semitic, this anti-Israel rhetoric towards Israel almost on a daily basis. And Turkey is a powerful country. And of course, with the relationship between Israel, or the proximity between Israel, Syria, and Turkey, Syria is a little bit of a free agent in this situation with Assad being gone. You know, we keep hearing good reports that al-Shara is stabilizing the country, trying to unify the country. There's a lot of work to do. But I just think if Turkey has the F-35, which is our most sophisticated aircraft, it gives them the ability, not just also to their south, but also it would affect Greece as well. They've got conflicts in Greece. So I think Saudi Arabia really would be the balance, could be a balancing mechanism here to keep everything a little bit in line there.
So no concerns with helping or giving Saudi Arabia the power to enrich their own uranium?
Not my initial reaction. I, of course, want to hear more intelligence. I visited Saudi Arabia. They've come a long way from where they were before. Obviously, the Crown Prince is a friend of the West, and he's a friend of America. And we also know that they are always keeping a check on Iran. Iran and the Arabs and the Persians, the IRGC and the Saudis have always been at each other. And I think we want to be careful where nuclear weapons go, but it's at the same time Turkey becomes more powerful. The Saudis are truly becoming a friend to the West. Also with the Abraham Accords, if they can pull the Saudis in with the Abraham Accords in relation to Israel and really build an economic relationship between several of those countries there, that could really be the balance that brings accountability to everybody there.
Well, they're clearly not there yet. They're not in the Abraham Accords yet. And in terms of being a friend of the United States, right, there are those who will suggest they're not particularly a friend of human rights or journalists in the past. But Congressman Morales does, and I do appreciate the conversation. I do appreciate talking to you. Thank you very much.
On this nuclear deal that CNN now hears from a U.S. official that the president has approved of a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia, and as was just discussed, it would come to Congress for approval. What do you know of this, and what do you think of it?
Well, the outline that we just heard is, no, we should never, ever do this. Why would we ever set up a situation in which there would be the likelihood of nuclear proliferation? We've already got around with an ability to enrich uranium to the point of being able to make a bomb, and we're going to turn that over to Saudi Arabia? No, we're not. This is just terrible, terrible policy. We ought to be going in the other direction, and presumably that's why Trump was attacking Iran in the first place, was to stop them from being able to develop a nuclear weapon. Now we're going to
the problem is that because Trump didn't get his act together and actually kill the IRGC and overthrow the actual theocratic regime of Iran, and he just tacoed out, Saudi Arabia wants to start the process of moving towards nuclear weapons. That's what's happening here. And they know that they might as well make the request now when Trump's in office, because another president would say no. And MBS warned people that if Iran continues to be belligerent and moves towards nuclear weapons, that Saudi Arabia will have to go nuclear. So all those people that thought, oh, American pacifists, that's the best policy, and Trump shouldn't be attacking Iran, you're just totally wrong. Just totally wrong. This is what I keep on saying, that when you have leaders making poor decisions, when you have groups of people that aren't really willing to solve problems right away, it can fester and get worse and worse and worse, just like cancer. And this is a classic example. Trump, in the first 3 to 4 weeks of knocking Iran. He could have taken them out. We could have put ground troops in. Nothing would have stopped him. But he was afraid. He was afraid. Now, we are actually seeing the beginnings of nuclear proliferation in the Middle East. Now you have Pakistan, you have India, you have Israel, you have Iran, and now Saudi Arabia. That sounds like a major problem. A major problem. American pacifists didn't want to get the job done. If you got the job done in the first 4 weeks or 6 weeks when we started this war with Iran, we wouldn't have had this problem. This is the reason why American pacifists are wrong on almost everything. On almost everything when it comes to geopolitical policy. They're just as wrong with geopolitical policy as the DSA, the Democratic Socialists, are on domestic policy. Shit.
The Persian Gulf and have Saudi Arabia with the power to enrich uranium. Enriched uranium can be made into a nuclear weapon. This is really, really bad policy. Now, if you want to do an energy issue, that's another matter.
The U.S. had been looking at a Saudi civilian nuclear agreement for years, including under the Biden administration, kind of as part of, seen in the broader context of a normalization pact between Israel and Saudi Arabia. You don't like this now, you don't like this ever, or you don't like this now if Donald Trump would be negotiating it?
Well, the issue about civilian use of nuclear power is certainly on the table. And there has to be serious safeguards if that is to happen. That cannot be the step towards enriching uranium and or building a nuclear bomb. We cannot put a situation into the Persian Gulf, in addition to Iran, that would create another country with the ability to enrich uranium and put them on the road to developing a nuclear weapon. This is just really bad step. Now, civilian nuclear is another matter, but
there was a combination of two major problems here. America pacifists not getting the job done in Iran, and that's the fault of Trump chickening out. And then Trump having this idea that he can negotiate deals and everything is like a real estate deal. I am so fucking tired of Trump. So fucking tired of him. I'm glad that he was president. I voted for him 3 times. He's much better than Harris, but I have Trump fatigue. Most people have Trump fatigue. Trump needs to fix the fucking problems that he started, like the tariffs, like making sure that he finishes the war correctly with Iran, and not kicking the can down the road for another generation, and stop doing stupid stuff like this. I mean, Trump is such a dumb shit.
Very, very tight controls. And we've done that in other countries. We would provide the fuel, and we would be taking the spent fuel out of that area. We don't have that detail, but what we know now, from least reporting, is that Saudi Arabia would be able to enrich uranium. No, that is a terrible public policy. It's a terrible policy for the Middle East. It's a terrible policy for America.
If Trump really wants to do this, he really thinks this is a good idea, he is not thinking in the long term. He's only thinking during his presidency and how this may help. Now, maybe behind the scenes, Saudi Arabia is saying, we'll allow you to go after Iran and we'll help you, but you gotta help us with this nuclear build out. And so Trump thinks, well, wait a minute here. I can get some allies in the GCC to help us against Iran, and we have to help them with nuclear power, so we'll just do that and kick the can down the road. No. See, what he should have done was in the first 3 weeks, put ground forces in, control the strait, control Karg Island, destroy their infrastructure, and make sure that the United States had 100% control of their energy sector. That's what the United States should have done 3 to 4 weeks starting this war with Iran. But we didn't, because Trump is a chicken shit. He's always a chicken shit on everything. Now think about another big problem that in just his mentality, the way Trump works. There's a major fire that's going on in Canada. Is it their fault or not? I don't know. Maybe they didn't do proper forest management. I don't know. But they have a major problem. And I haven't heard any news organizations, local news or international, where Trump has actually sent firefighters to help the Canadians. Now, you know what? That's wrong. That's just wrong not to help a neighbor that's in need. Secondly, that fire is causing problems in the United States. So this is the problem with Trump. Everything is a real estate deal. Everything. Trump is causing more problems now. He needs to fix what he's broken and shut up. And fix what he's broken means the White House. He needs to fix that. He needs to stabilize what the actual tariff regime will be. And he needs to win in Iran. He needs to kill. No, but he's going to tackle out. He's going to say there's going to be a new MOU and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Really? I mean, stupid. I am so fatigued with Trump now. There's just constant not getting stuff done and just causing more problems. He acts like a bully. He acts like a bull in the china shop, and he's not solving problems to the end. But he thinks he's a tough guy, and he thinks that, that he's the smartest guy in the room and that he can negotiate with anyone and all this stuff. Just tired of him. Just tired of Trump. I want him to go away.
What's the overall approach, Secretary, to Myanmar and to potentially re-engaging with the junta there or cooperating on issues like rare earths?
What's the
position or the approach of the Trump administration towards Myanmar and re-engagement with the government?
Yeah, no, well, I don't have any announcement for you on that today. It's a policy that we're still developing in many ways. Obviously, there's some conditions that have been shifting with regards to Myanmar, Burma, over the last few months that we're keeping an eye on and see if there's opportunities to engage. Obviously, we still have many concerns about some of the things that have happened in that country historically and in the past. And there also remains a question of how receptive and open they are to a different relationship with the United States as well. So these things are still being worked on, but I don't have any announcement on that today other than, they were here and they were present today. And I'm glad they were here and I said that in our forum. But it's not a place we have a long history of engagement in recent times. So if an opportunity presents itself to do something that serves our national interest, we'll explore it. But there's still some work to be done in that regard. Okay, guys.
You confirm that the White House will be announcing a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia today?
I don't have any news for you on that today, but maybe later today, once Washington wakes up, or if there is an announcement, I promise you'll know about it. Okay, thanks. That way.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Manuka honey lozenges or the orange splash lozenges. Perfect for the cold season, the allergy season. Take them right away to mitigate any problems. Those secretions help to protect your oral pharynx, and it has structural nanosilver, so it'll help to neutralize. Myatrol will help to build muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. Make sure you do some resistance training. This will help to reduce atrophy and build muscle. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from Myatrol. But if you're 40 years of age and not an athlete, male or female, you'll benefit also. Do some resistance training, take the Myatrol. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps the basal layer for your skin, stacks really well with C60 to help that basal layer for that skin to produce healthier skin cells. So over time, you look younger. Resveratrol gets rid of cells that are in senescence, and resveratrol helps to soak up free radicals and boost up the health of your mitochondria so you have more energy. This is the reason why taking resveratrol regularly, you age slower.
And probiotics, you can get it in the veggie cap form or in the powdered form. With a good probiotic, you're going to improve your gut biome. You're going to be able to absorb your nutrients better. You're going to be bringing down inflammation, boosting up your immune system at the gut level. Your metabolism will improve. You'll be able to control your BMI. You'll have better sleep. Yes, better gut biome helps you to get into the proper sleep pattern. And when you have better sleep, you have better brain function. And your skin health will improve. So please go to my store, get the probiotics, either in the veggie cap form or in the powdered form. Use discount 5 so you save some money. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link in the description, go to my website, get the great products that I offer. And start telling your congressman or congresswoman or senator, you know what? You're tired of Trump constantly causing chaos and not solving problems.
Thank you, sir. You just heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio, trying to figure out which way to go, speaking live in the Philippines after meeting with his Chinese counterpart.
Rubio discussing a wide range of topics, including the latest on the war with Iran.
So, a guy that was listening, I am sure, Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yates is live in Tel Aviv with the details. Because Trey, we talked a lot about the region that you call home.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Good morning. Secretary Rubio speaking there from the Philippines, discussing the war with Iran and the possibility of negotiations. He says right now the Iranians are not serious about making a deal.
We remain open to diplomacy. We remain open to working it out in a negotiated way. But right now, they don't seem to be serious about that. And so we're going to continue to protect shipping. We think other countries should join us in that endeavor. We don't need them to, but they should, because they're more impacted by it than we are. And at the same time, we are going to, when the opportunity presents itself, degrade their ability to target global shipping.
The remarks from Secretary Rubio come after the United States hammered the Iranians for an 11th straight night. The target list expanded. Reports indicate far deeper strikes inside of Iranian territory, along with a variety of positions along the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM released a statement saying over the past 3 months, Iran has attacked more than 30 commercial vessels transiting the international waterway vital for regional and global trade. The unwarranted attacks have endangered hundreds of innocent mariners and undermined freedom of navigation. The strait remains largely at a standstill, with just 3 commercial vessels passing through on Tuesday, according to Kepler shipping data. The other area of focus remains on Iran's nuclear program that President Trump says will be targeted in the days ahead.
We follow the material. That's where the action is. And we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it. Normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
Both the United States and Iran have left open the door for diplomacy. The Iranians have continued their attacks against Gulf countries, overnight targeting Kuwait. Just last hour, the Jordanians say they dealt with incoming Iranian missile fire toward the southern city of Aqaba. The explosions there could be heard in southern Israel. Guys?
Hey, Trey, what could you tell me about the Red Sea? You know, we hear the Houthis going to say we're shutting it down to Saudi Arabia. They seem to be in their own little fight, but that's going to affect the global price of oil and gas. So what's happened? Is it just rhetoric or is it action?
Right now, it's just rhetoric. The Houthis have made some open threats about trying to close the Bab el-Mandab Strait. This translates to the Gateway of Tears, the entrance into the Red Sea. And they've done so in the past, but they've also paid a heavy price for it, with both U.S. and Israeli strikes that have targeted one of Iran's largest proxies there in Yemen. Yesterday, President Trump was asked about this at the White House, and he said if ultimately the Houthis decide to do this, then business could be taken care of, an indication that strikes could be on the table for the Houthis if they try to threaten international shipping lanes. Remember, in the past, the Houthis have launched missiles and drones at Israel. Back in 2024, a man was killed here in Tel Aviv by a Houthi drone that targeted very close to where the U.S. Embassy branch is located in this city. But more broadly speaking, there are a variety of options on the table for the president, not just to deal with Iran, but also its proxies across the region. And so it's something to keep an eye on, because certainly if they decide to try and close that critical waterway, it would be another dynamic in this expanding story. But right now we're just seeing rhetoric from Houthi forces in Yemen.
Yeah, 8 million barrels of oil go through pipelines there, and then through the shipping lane.
Trey, I noticed the strike list last night that an Iranian barracks was targeted. I thought that's very notable after an Iranian ballistic missile hit the base in Jordan that killed 4 American soldiers. It does seem like the Trump administration and the U.S. military is ramping up these strikes, especially when you're targeting Iranian barracks.
Yeah, President Trump has had a very clear message for the Iranian regime. You kill U.S. forces in the Middle East, and you'll pay a price 10 times greater. And that's starting to be the equation that is unfolding in the region. The Iranians have taken 11 straight nights of incoming U.S. strikes. And again, the target list is expanding here. And the president said yesterday from the Oval Office, he's been nice so far. The Iranians haven't seen anything yet. Remember, there are a variety of options for President Trump when it comes to military pressure on the Iranians. And it's not just the military pressure, it's also the economic pressure that is expanding each and every day. The U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports is back in place, and it's costing the Iranians hundreds of millions of dollars each day. And when we think about the domestic pressure that the regime is facing in a country of 90 million people, they can't get food to many of their people. It's difficult to get water to their civilians, and the inflation rate is skyrocketing. Right now, the rial in Iran is almost 2 million to $1 US, one of the highest levels that it's ever been. And this is partially a result of the U.S. naval blockade that is putting new pressure on the Iranian economy.
Well, all right, Trey, we only have 30 more questions, but unfortunately we're out of time.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you throughout the show, Trey. Thank you. You do an excellent job. The president is going to be at 11 o'clock this morning at the dignified transfer today. You mentioned the individuals, the service members that were killed in Jordan. There was also someone that was killed in Iraq by an Iranian drone. So the president will be there at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. I think he leaves around 8 a.m. and we'll be covering that all morning long.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and exclusive access to all things VIP. So you can
in the quarter of more than $60 billion.
Okay, this next video is about Van Jones blasts terrible socialist policies amid party takeover. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. This will help your immune system and your endocrine system, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. And ashwagandha root helps you to control your cortisol levels and blood glucose levels. You can take these separately, but I highly recommend that you stack them to help slow down the aging process. That's lignans, turmeric, and ashwagandha. Take it every day. This is something that you should do to help slow down the aging process. And when you do that, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, and brain function. Now, I've explained it 1,000 times, so I'm not going to do it today.
Bernie and AOC rallying the Rust Belt this weekend for far-left candidate Abdul El-Sayed as top Democrats sound alarm over the rise of socialism within their party.
Humble yourself, Bernie. You know, you just pushed an accused rapist and imploded up in Maine, and now you're pushing, essentially a pro-Hamas candidate that's been anti-American and deeply anti-Israel.
I am tired of a set of people on the very far left in the Democratic Party telling us that in order for us to be progressives, we now have to believe ideas and support ideas that are completely nuts. No police, no prisons. We can't deport anybody, even if they commit rape or murder. Israel shouldn't exist. These are terrible ideas.
Fox News contributor Mark Tayson joins us now. Mark, if the far left, if they've lost Van Jones, then perhaps they may have a problem.
Yeah, I think the Democrats are kind of reaping what they've sown here.
If you think about it, so Brian was mentioning earlier in the show that the DSA platform, they want to get rid of the Senate and the Supreme Court, right? And that seems pretty crazy. Like the Senate and the Supreme Court are part of our system of checks and balances. And so it's pretty authoritarian to want to get rid of those checks and balances on our system. Well, that's not so different from mainstream Democrats who want to get rid of the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court. It's the same impulse. They want to get rid of the check on their ability to pass their far left agenda. The DSA is just more honest about it. But when you're going around trying to get to, attacking the Supreme Court, trying to get rid of the filibuster, you're essentially doing the same thing. So they're engaged in a hostile takeover for the party because the Democrats have been trying to appease them by implementing their far left agenda. But these people don't want to be appeased. They want power. They're revolutionaries. And so going part of the way towards democratic socialism means it just empowers the democratic socialists. And now the Democrats are paying a price for that.
Well, and it also seems that the first thing on their checklist is the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel rhetoric that is going on. And that is the first marker on the list. And Bill Maher has been warning them about that for a while. They haven't listened. He shocked me, though, when he said this.
Democrats are cowardly. Yeah. They're cowardly. Their party is being taken over now. When we're cheering for the Intifada, God, I'm out. Your vote is up for grabs. Yes, my vote is in play because it can't be Trump running. So I'm not living in communist America. I mean, I know that the talking point is that it's not communism, it's socialism. Okay, I've read the quotes from the DSA platform, from their own mouths. They say things like, takeover of key industries, government. That's communism.
Mark, he's saying, let's just stop playing games. We know what this is.
Yeah, no, he's 100% right. And look, the communists, if you think about this, they say they're not communists, they're democratic socialists. You know who else said that? The Democratic Republic of East Germany, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. And when you put democratic as a modifier, it means you're not democratic. That's generally a giveaway. That's the tell, right? If you have to say you're democratic X, you're not. They're communists. Mamdani says his philosophy is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs, which is Karl Marx's definition of communism. So yes, these people are communists. And the problem is the Democrats ran in 20...
Mamdani is Napoleon the Pig in Animal Farm. That's what's happening. New York City is Animal Farm.
Won the presidency with Joe Biden by promising to be moderate. He promised to reach across the aisle and work with Republicans and bring the country together. And instead what he did is he handed his administration over to the far left. And so the far left looks at that and says, we want more. We're not satisfied with a Trojan horse presidency. We want a real communist in charge. And so they are engaged in a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party, much like the MAGA movement engaged in a hostile takeover of the Republican Party, except MAGA loves America. These people hate America.
Such a good point. Mark Thiessen fired up this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
Vistaprint is where you...
All right, let's listen to... Live Now. No, not Live Now. MS Now. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite. The zeolite will help to bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. This will help to boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, and your other organ systems will start to benefit. When you detoxify your body and detoxify your environment by cleaning your environment and putting the cleaning solutions, the paints in a double layer container, you're reducing your risk exposure. In addition, make sure that you drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods. When you reduce your intake of toxins and you take zeolite and you're binding the toxins that are in your body, you are slowly improving your health. So detoxifying your body and detoxifying your environment are both very important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
It's something we'll only...
Let's bring in the lead-off panel. Luke Broadwater is here, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House correspondent for the New York Times. Leanne Caldwell, Chief Washington correspondent for Puck. And Bobby Ghosh is back, foreign affairs commentator, columnist, and geopolitical analyst. He also writes Ghosh World on Substack. Bobby, I have not seen you in ages, so you are up first. Can we start with Saudi Arabia? Explain to us why this reported nuclear agreement with the United States is such an enormous deal.
Well, we have to remind ourselves that the United States and Saudi Arabia have been talking about a nuclear deal for two presidencies. Joe Biden wanted to make a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia, and Donald Trump does too. There are a couple of important differences between the two. First, Biden wanted to link that deal to Saudi Arabia making a diplomatic breakthrough with Israel. This was meant to be the sweetener for Saudi Arabia joining the so-called Abraham Accords. It seems that Trump has now de-linked those two things and is willing to go ahead and make this deal. The other main difference, and this is something we'll only know all the details when we have them, and we don't yet have them, is whether or not Saudi Arabia will be subject to the same kinds of United Nations agency supervision for their nuclear program. Because we're not just talking about the Saudis having a nuclear power program. That many countries have that. But we're talking about Saudi Arabia enriching uranium in Saudi Arabia. That's where the concern steps for. If they're going to enrich nuclear fuel, who's going to supervise that? How closely will it be supervised? And how much can we rely upon Saudi Arabia to make sure that that supervision is airtight and that materials and technology does not get into the wrong hands?
Luke, obviously, President Trump has a great relationship with the Saudis. We certainly know Jared Kushner does as well. But what would this deal mean for the rest of America? And I just don't mean the nuclear companies who stand to make a lot of money.
Right. Well, obviously, there's American business interests here in building materials and sending the materials to Saudi for this nuclear program, if it doesn't, in fact, go forward. And I do think that there is perhaps a give and take here with Saudi in terms of the investment pledges that the Saudis have made with President Trump. You know, MBS, when he was in the Oval Office, said something like he would bring $1 trillion into the United States. Now, we haven't really seen that money materialize, but that's the kind of big numbers that President Trump likes to tout as sort of his deal-making success. And so you have that flashy number on the one hand, and then you see this nuclear agreement coming on the other hand. You sort of see how these things are related.
Yes, but when he says these numbers at this point, Luke, it's like Dr. Evil and Austin Powers. You might as well say $1 gazillion. We don't see it materialize, but we do see a post that the president just put out on social media that I want to read, where he writes, from this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, the United States will bomb and destroy, this in all caps, one bridge or one power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald John Trump. Bobby, let me just get your reaction to this.
Well, this is consistent with the things that he said before. He's promised to eradicate Iranian civilization. He's promised to, the words that the administration uses, Trump, and we just saw Hexet use it there, obliterate, extinguish, flatten. The Iranians don't seem to be particularly scared of that. They seem to have, despite being obliterated, they seem to have the ability to strike and kill Americans in the region, and they seem to be able to threaten not just the Strait of Hormuz, but now through their allies in Yemen, they're also threatening the other major waterway, which is the Red Sea. And so these threats, familiar as they are, don't seem to be moving the needle in Tehran, which is where they're directed.
not for the Iranian regime, but it has to have you thinking about the Iranian people. So many who in the early phase of this war were excited, were optimistic, were enthusiastic that Donald Trump might be here to help. And now they're sitting there in Tehran under the potential threat of bombing. Let's talk more, though, Leanne, about this potential deal with the Saudis. Congress can review it, but it would likely need a 2/3 majority to override Trump in order to actually block this thing. What are lawmakers saying?
Well, it's brand new, and so they haven't heard a lot from lawmakers just yet. But you can expect them to be deeply skeptical of it. Not only Democrats, but perhaps some Republicans too, who aren't totally wanting to show no daylight with the president. The fact that there is no demand for Saudi to normalize relations with Israel could be really problematic for a lot of members of Congress. The fact that it seems like the United States hasn't gotten much in return, other than perhaps a better relationship with Saudi Arabia, might not be enough for lawmakers. But that 2/3 majority, like you mentioned, Steph, is a real problem and does give the president a lot of power to move forward with this if he so chooses.
Bobby, given the president's tweet or post just moments ago, is it fair to say that diplomacy is absolutely off the table?
I would hope not. The Pakistanis still think that they are playing a mediating role. The Omanis, the Qataris, they're all trying to get the diplomats together. But Donald Trump at the moment does not seem to be thinking about that. He's thinking about trying to get the Iranians once again to capitulate, which does not seem likely to happen. So I wouldn't rule out diplomacy in the weeks ahead, but right at this moment, this week, today, it's not happening.
All right, let's talk about Hegseth on the Hill. Yesterday, this war is now putting us in the range of spending over $100 billion that we know of, right? That we're hearing from Pete Hegseth. The number obviously could be higher than that. Leanne, are Republicans really going to fall in line with a number this big?
You know, probably. I was talking to a moderate House Republican yesterday, Brian Fitzpatrick, who is one of the most vulnerable House members up for re-election. He has been extremely critical of the war and the direction and the lack of information that the administration has given to Congress about its end game, what it plans to do with the money, etc. And he said he is going to support what's now before him is a $70 billion supplemental fund for this war in Iran. He says it's not a permission to continue the war. In fact, it is instead to support the troops. And so that is one of the many rationalizations that Republicans who aren't comfortable with the direction of this war or any information that they are receiving from this administration are giving themselves in order to support it. So yes, I think that they are going to absolutely support it. So
okay, well, how about the president's rationalization? Yesterday, he posted as his defense for the war, he was comparing the death toll in Iran to other wars. You have it right there on your screen. Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, Korea, Venezuela. Iran military conflict, 4 months, 18 dead. He's basically saying, only 18. We should take that as a win. Luke, is this going to be a winning argument for this president? It's only been 18. We're good.
I mean, that was a kind of a shocking post to me to put up.
Even for him, shocking.
Yeah, on the day before, he's going to the dignified transfer of dead American troops who are coming back into this country. You know, if you're with the families of some of those troops and you see him minimizing their deaths like that, I think that strikes the wrong note for those families. But to your question, at large, the American people have never supported this war. The polling for it has never been positive. And as it stretches on, as the cost that you mentioned earlier to taxpayers rise, and now the human costs are rising. You know, it's bringing back American soldiers in flag-draped coffins is not going to be a winning message in the midterms. And you know, the longer it goes on, I think the worse it is for Donald Trump politically.
Bobby, what is your level of concern? Let's say on a 1 to 10, that the situation we're in could end up as another endless war in the Middle East, similar to Iraq.
Well, I'd say if I had to pick a number, I'd say 7.5 to 8 at this moment. I think it's going to be a different kind of endless war. I don't think, because we have no boots on the ground, because there's not yet any sort of clear plan to have boots on the ground, it's going to be a different kind of war. I think we'll have alternating hot war, cold war, hot war, cold war situations where you will have these bombing raids, these attacks over several days, and then we'll have a period of diplomacy that does not lead to anything. We'll have threats over Hormuz, and then we'll have a ship being attacked, and then we'll have... So this movie that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 months, I suspect we'll see repeats of that cycle over and over and over again, and going out at least until the end of the Trump term, because I think he's painted himself into such a corner now that there's no way he can extricate himself from it without losing not just face, but without losing enormous amount of political power, without creating a catastrophe for his party. And we know Donald Trump does not like to back out from anything. So I have a feeling that we'll have this cycle repeat itself for quite a long time to come.
I just think back to the first few days since we struck Iran. I called all sorts of GOP donors, some people from Trump's first administration, investors, and over I heard this is going to be a little longer than Venezuela, maybe 3 days, 4 days, 5 max. We're approaching month 5. Bobby, thank you. Luke, Leanne, you're not leaving just yet.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 35 or Cleanse. Max 35 or Cleanse will help to boost up that innate immune system. You swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. This will help to improve your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, also help the epithelial cells. And when you do that, you're boosting up your innate immune system. This is very important to do every day. I've been doing this for more than 6 years, every day, teaspoon a day is the dosage. And perfect for the cold season, the allergy season. It helps to neutralize. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 35 or Cleanse. We're going to play a clip where CNBC was interviewing Walter Isaacson on OpenAI's cyber breach.
Autonomously escaped a controlled environment, then hacked their way into the systems of Hugging Face, a company that hosts open source AI models and testing resources, so effectively it could find the cheat codes to answer the questions that it had been asked. Walter Isaacson, advisor partner at Perella Weinberg, and a CNBC contributor at the table. And some of this actually is what, wow, right? And I was going to say, some of this is what Elon Musk had warned about, at the very beginning of this, back in 2015, when he was starting OpenAI with Sam Altman, meaning in terms of what could potentially happen.
Well, the whole question of the singularity has been with us for 50 years, which is, what if it escapes? What if we create Dr. Frankenstein's monster and we can no longer control it? And this thing that happened this week is totally amazing, because you were just talking about, these packs that want this type of regulation. OpenAI could not even control in its own sandbox, having cut this thing off from the internet.
Right.
It figures out a way to escape.
To find the internet. Right.
Yeah, to find the internet, to escape. And it's weird because it seems like it has its own intentionality.
And so when you look at this, I was saying, I think to Becky earlier, some people look at this as something that's super scary. Other people seem to think it's actually a little less scary and is just a little bit of a flex by OpenAI, in the same way that some people thought Anthropic was flexing about sort of the dangers of ethos as a way of actually gaining new customers to say, look how powerful our systems are.
I think it's a manufactured consensus to try to get the demand up, because OpenAI and Anthropic do not have the revenues to justify $1 trillion valuation. So they're scaring everybody. It's a scare tactic.
I think I'm in Becky's camp, as she's the one that this is really frightening. It is clear, as far as I can tell from everything they've said, OpenAI didn't want this to happen. This thing escaped its own test bed, its own sandbox. And, I've been an AI optimist. I think AI is going to increase the number of jobs. I think it's incredibly useful technology. But this is the first thing that just totally scares me, because if it is no longer aligned with human values, and it no longer obeys our commands, you could try to make a movie
Here's
out
the
of this,
question,
but
though.
Hollywood would
And
say,
this
no,
is the one distinction I make in this particular case. It didn't say to it, use human values or say there are guardrails. In fact, it explicitly took all of that off the table.
Which is why I think there's a need for regulation when it comes to this. You shouldn't
Right,
be allowed
I mean-
to set these things loose. And by the way, it's not OpenAI that even figured out it escaped. It was this other company, Hugging Face, that figured out we got broken into by somebody. I mean, to me, that is the biggest call for regulation.
And you're right. You can say, okay, you should tell all of your systems to always align with human values. Well, let me ask you, Peter Thiel's values and Palmer Luckey's values and Bernie Sanders' values, all the same alignment. And if
What about just follow the law? Don't break any laws along the way, because this was clearly breaking laws.
yeah, you could say, okay, try to figure out every law and never hack into a system. That would be great.
But now we get
now we're getting into the
now we get into a more complicated place, because then this gets back to the idea of a sort of human constitution or something. One of the arguments around Anthropic has been that the way it was designed from the get-go is that it does have a quote-unquote constitution. I don't know if Anthropic's model would do the same thing that OpenAI's model would have done, quote-unquote, without guardrails or not. It's supposed to have more of a conscience, if you will. But then it also won't do certain things that the government might tell you to do, even if the government is quote unquote either breaking the law or breaking some kind of human.
Okay, what about Isaac
breaking the
laws for
Constitution.
robotics?
Yeah, I mean, the zero law of robotics don't do anything that harms humanity.
Right.
But you ask a good question. Anthropic said, let's have a constitution. Let's not allow it to survey, everybody and do things that would break certain laws.
Right, but
and the Pentagon then says, no, we're not going to allow your use. So this is a difficult thing.
What do you think? I'm looking at you because I think you had a view, I could be wrong, about if as long as the government says it's okay, it should be okay.
No, my view is that if we're worried about this today, then I think we got the 100 killers seeking us out in about 10 years.
I think when you add this to, let's have China put out its open weight and even open source system, you lose a lot of ability to have guardrails. I think Dario Amodei and Daniela, his sister, who are doing the ethics part of Anthropic, are great. And I think they have a really good constitution. They're having trouble with the Pentagon fighting them on the one hand, other people fighting them. If everybody were trying to create good constitutions like Anthropic, but OpenAI specifically went in when the Pentagon tried to push back on Anthropic, and Sam Altman said, oh, okay, we'll do it for you. So, there's a race to escapism right now.
Where do you think Elon Musk is in all of this, given that you've been his biographer all this
He
time?
is totally worried. I mean, Becky raised Asimov as a kid, with very few friends. And he's sitting in the corner of the bookstore, and all he does is read science fiction, mainly Asimov, and starts having a deep belief that the robots can get out of control. And even physical robots, when he's doing Optimus, the robot, his humanoid robot, he was saying, okay, let's make it a little smaller. Let's make it so it can't outrun you. He's trying to put these guardrails in, but, that's why he's worried about OpenAI. And I suspect there'll be some partnerships, more partnership between XAI or SpaceXAI or whatever we call it these days and Anthropic, because I think in some ways Elon.
You think he's more aligned with Anthropic, even though there was a period of time where you remember Elon was giving Dario a very hard time, arguing that it was too low.
About enemy, you never have permanent friends, you never have only permanent interests. Elon is not permanent in his friendship, but one of the things he's consistent about is he doesn't like Sam Altman and OpenAI.
That would be very interesting if they teamed up. He and
They are teaming up at $2.5 billion a month already. One of the things about releasing open weight and open source, that I think, I'm not an investor, so this is an investor, kind of hurts these big frontier model companies because they can be undermined by more generic models and people can download the open weight. But it helps Elon Musk because he also has the data centers. He also has Cursor now. He's going to get Cursor, which is the application. The profits and margins will move from the frontier models if there's more open source and more Chinese things coming. And people need to build data centers in outer space in 4 or 5 years because, boy, there's a big backlash against data centers.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help the health of your gum line, improve your gum line, and improve your oral cavity. It has structural nanosilver, so it's going to neutralize. This is perfect to use every day. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household and use it especially during the cold season because it neutralizes. This has no fluoride. This is the best toothpaste that you can get. Please go to my store and get it. Digestive enzyme complex helps to reduce the load on your pancreas so you can digest your foods more efficiently with less stress on your digestive system. This will break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, allow you to absorb your nutrients. It also has bromelain that helps to break up clots. So it's dual purpose. Please take the digestive enzyme complex and reduce the load on your pancreas. Clarity factor gets rid of that brain fog, allows you to concentrate, and over time, your neurons will link up more. You'll have a more robust neural network. You'll be thinking faster, and you'll have better memory. Take this every day. Drink it with filtered water. And vitamin D3, dual purpose. It's a gene expression cofactor. It helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis if they're infected. Vitamin D3 also helps with bone density, and vitamin D3 helps cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you save some money. All right, let's listen to Robbie here from the Hill.
The socialist left is busy telling you exactly who they are and also who their friends are. Unfortunately, their friends are extremists, radicals, and in some cases, outright terrorists. I wish I was kidding. Here, for instance, was leftist YouTuber Kyle Kulinski, one of the most annoying jerks on the internet, appearing on a stream and going off about how sad it was that the U.S. is making things a little bit more difficult for terrorist groups. Seriously, he's upset that the war with Iran is going to make it harder for Iran to funnel money to Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. Listen to this.
The U.S. government and the Israeli government, they are the terrorists. They are the terrorists. They are doing terrorism. If Iran's off the table as a regional power, that means Hezbollah can't be funded, Hamas can't be funded, the Houthis can't be funded, like the Shia crescent falls, and then you have nothing but regional domination for Israel.
So that was Kulinski complaining that we could get into a situation where Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis would not be in a position to engage in violence. This footage, by the way, comes courtesy of Canary Mission, which is a group that fights anti-Semitism, and they obtained the stream. Now, I'm always a bit wary of things being clipped out of context. Maybe Kulinski was making some more nuanced point, but just got cut off? Well, apparently not, since he retweeted that org and thanked them for posting his wins. In other words, he stands by exactly what he said. He was on the side of Hamas and Hezbollah. So it's unsurprising then that he had plenty of other nasty and purely false things to say. He went on to accuse the U.S. and Israel and everybody else he doesn't like of being part of the axis of Epstein. My God. Indeed, he's frequently asserted wrongly that Trump is being blackmailed by Israel over Epstein, and that this explains all of his actions.
The president is a blackmailed pedophile, ladies and gentlemen. The president is a blackmailed pedophile. Not going to see that on CNN. You're not going to see that on MS Now. You're not going to see that on any of the mainstream media networks.
You're not going to see that claim on any of those networks because it is a false and vicious and defamatory smear that would result in them being sued. Kulinski is lucky that it's not worth anybody's time to try and sue him. In fact, Kalinske probably isn't significant enough to waste any time on at all. The reason I'm calling attention to him is because he wasn't alone on that stream where he defended terrorist groups. You know who else participated in that stream? Mary Elisa Vila Chevalier, Cory Bush, Elad Kiros, Shoykat Chakrabarti, and also Ro Khanna. They were all on it with him. See, these DSA lefties, they're all friends with each other. And they'd like to be friends with America's enemies as well.
So explain the context of them joining the stream. Were they discussing that particular part, or were they just on a long stream joining at some point?
Yeah.
Correlate that they now condone every single one of his comments. Would you like to do this?
Maybe they don't
You
condone
like to do
every
this?
single one of
Yeah.
his
If
comments.
I join your stream and you go crazy in the beginning, and then I join about a quarter of the way in, I don't want to be attached to everything you said before I jump
But
on.
people understand that you're not endorsing everything I say, and I'm not endorsing everything.
So then why are you attaching me?
We're a debate thing. This was not a debate thing.
We can
This
agree
was
with Bill Maher all the time with other Democrats, and he calls himself a leftist all the time, and he adamantly disagrees with the current state of Democrats and argues with them, and they don't. Everything he says on the show prior to them joining doesn't mean that they agree. That's not, to me, joining a show is not a statement of agreement. It's just saying I'm happy to have a dialogue, even with someone who differs than me. So that doesn't automatically connect everyone from Ro Khanna.
It doesn't automatically, but I suspect they do agree.
I mean, what?
I mean, what would do they not?
I just think that there's an obsession in making all these people evil when they have ideas that they're putting forth on the table. Ideas that some people, specifically in places like New York, or whether you want to point out the groups of white wealthy people or middle class people that put
These
people-
ideas from the Democratic Socialist Party believe in communism. They're trying to nullify capitalism. They are aligned with relativism. They want to abolish the Enlightenment. They don't care for God, country, and family. They are the enemy. DSA is the enemy. What, they have some ideas, they have some great ideas, but all of these ideas have failed. But they're so young that they don't know any better. So maybe they don't know their history, or maybe they do know their history and it's even more nefarious. I'm so tired of these people. These socialists, the only way America is going to move forward is to have a civil war.
Crystal, I know you point that out a lot. So, Donnie's voting. I'm talking about the policies of the people on the platform. You're trying to connect it all.
I'm talking about the policies that they're talking about. They're talking about, look, this is it's not just to some type. Here's another one. Like, there are a lot of the far left commentary people.
I love that. So let's talk about it.
Point to
because you're pretending
support terrorist groups.
Right, you're pretending like far-right people don't exist in the same podcast space.
I'm
Nick
pretending
Fuentes, who said, "Your body, my choice." Nick Fuentes, who's anti-LGBTQ. Nick Fuentes, who's anti-Black. Nick Fuentes, who's anti-Jewish. Like, what do you mean? These are people that exist and have big platforms in the far-right space. I believe that one of the
welcome, but is not going to be embraced by any Republican figure, period.
Okay, let me tell you about your friend, and he might not be your friend, I'm saying this in jest.
Yeah.
Richard Hanania, is that his name?
Sure.
He contributed to Project 2025. He also was known as a closeted white nationalist.
He's renounced and apologized.
Okay, and he still was, if you're racist for 10 years and then you stop, I don't care. You're still racist.
Well,
I can't apologize. Well, I do feel that way. You spent the whole of your 20s, you say people are adults after they graduate college. You said, let's not look at tweets from 16 years old, but let's look at stuff when you're an adult and say, okay, how long are we going to say that was a young kid? All right, this is a grown man being racist and hiding as a white nationalist who contributed to framework that the president used to govern our society right now, and he's a white nationalist.
He's not a white nationalist. He's written at
Because he
great length.
renounced it because he got caught is not the same thing as not being a white nationalist.
He has written volumes and like he's a partisan, not partisan. He supports Democrats now. He like.
Where do you support?
Because he's
Nobody
changed
wants a
his
white
mind.
nationalist on
He's
their
not a white
side.
nationalist.
He helped craft framework that got rid of DEI with Project 2025. And he actually doesn't like, for a time in his life, a long stretch, did not like people of color. But he crafted what gets rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion that our country is now governed by because the president.
That the right hates and is not embraced.
I picked somebody that the right embraced enough to create a framework which President Trump runs his government
They
by.
embraced him before his white nationalist views were known, and then he got himself in trouble. And he wrote at great length about why he's no longer a white nationalist. But take it or leave it, it doesn't matter. This is where you're talking about someone who said right now that they support terrorism.
Now or later, I'm telling you, there are examples on the far right that you need to obviously be aware of and acknowledge.
But these people are not being embraced by Republicans who aspire to hold office. Kyle Kalinske is friends, and Hassan Piker is friends with people who are running for office.
Fuentes was just on Tucker Carlson's podcast who said he may run, who said he may support, running an election.
Tucker Carlson's out. I said what? He's not part of the Republican coalition anymore. He's out.
Okay, so everybody gets ostracized when they start doing things that don't align.
Like putting Nick Fuentes on their platform, yes.
No, Tucker Carlson is still embraced by a lot of people. He's J.D. Vance's really, really, really good friend, who's the vice president of our country. Let's stop pretending like he's some ostracized.
Well, Ben Shapiro had some unkind words for J.D. Vance this week for exactly that reason. So you're aligning over a lot of differences and distinctions and people fighting amongst each other or fighting with Nick Fuentes or fighting with Tucker Carlson. They're not fighting with Kyle Kalinske there. No one's going to speak up on that thing and say, excuse me, you just have been support for terrorism.
If you show me the clip where Daria Lisa
they're lying in because they agree.
If you show me the clip where she's saying, yes, I agree with you, then I'll be going to have a conversation about it. If you show me him saying something on his lonely, by himself, talking directly to the camera and then saying people joined later or around that conversation and saying they agree with it is not the same thing.
You're being so obtuse here.
I'm not.
You actually think for 1 second Daria Lisa Chevalier doesn't agree with him about Hamas?
Yes, I agree.
That's insane. She obviously does.
She's marched and been a part of Columbia protests that said that Palestinians deserve rights.
No.
Understand why that means that she's a Hamas supporter?
Because they said that the Hamas's actions on October 7th were good and a part of their liberation.
It came from Daria Lisa Avila Shimala.
It came from the student group you just cited.
But she was a part of it. Again, so have you never been part of any group and you don't, every single thing they do doesn't speak for you?
If I was part of a group that supported terrorist activities, I would disassociate from the group. Or if for some reason everything else about the group was so great, I would say, well, I am part of this group, I guess. I strongly condemn this aspect of the group. Probably I just wouldn't want to be part of the group because I don't want to, on any level, provide support for crazy Islamic radicals who engage in violence against.
From my understanding of the group at Columbia University, which does a great job of moderating and making sure, and obviously they got in a little bit of trouble for making sure that Jewish students weren't comfortable, but they've done a great job over the years of trying to make sure that all voices can be heard. This group was trying to campaign and advocate for Palestinians not getting crushed by the choices of Hamas and by the choices of how far this war went, and by the choices of Benjamin Netanyahu, who multiple countries have accused of war crimes in this situation. They were advocating for the rights of the people who lost everything. And so that's what I saw from the group. But if you want to point to one thing that was said by the group and then paint the entire picture of everything that Daria Lisa was fighting for because it makes sense for the argument, fine, you can do that. But I don't find that to be true.
Dragged people from their homes or just went into their homes and shot them. Shot them in their bunkers in their homes while they were hiding. Went to a music festival where people were celebrating and dancing all day and all night and gunned them down. These are just brutal and sadistic behavior that I wouldn't want to even be accidentally in the same room as someone who is saying, man, I'm really sad they're going to lose money.
I understand October 7th, and I understand that Israel has the right to defend itself, and we've went over this a million times. And they did defend itself. And at a certain point, the entire international community, besides the U.S., basically said, you're going way too far. People are starving to death. You are killing children. You're blowing up children in their school. They can't learn. Like, this is all happening. There are settlers that are going in areas and doing things that have been documented by the New York Times that I don't want to repeat on
Your
air.
frustration
What are you
with what
saying?
the Israeli government does has nothing to do with whether a terrorist group should engage in random acts of violence against.
Obviously, I don't agree with that, but I'm telling you, when you take every single politician that's advocating for Palestinians to have rights and saying that they are now supporting terrorism, that is a false equivalency.
No,
that's what I'm telling you.
I say he's
And you're telling me by going on
as
a
he
podcast.
said, I support the terrorist group.
But he's a
There
podcaster.
are other people on the street
Fuentes
got it
says,
wrong.
I hate people that are gay and I hate black people.
I'm not
Okay, so
taking
that
any responsibility for
exactly. So then they shouldn't have to take responsibility for a podcaster. These are elected officials that are not saying those things. That's what I'm telling you. So if no one is taking responsibility for Nick Fuentes, even though his voice was propelled in the movement, if no one is taking any responsibility for a commentator,
Nick
Hernania, who
was
made
on a stream with a bunch of
this guy was part of the government.
candidates.
Richard Hernania
Then
made
you bet the mainstream media would be.
racist made
Richard
up.
Hernania is not a comparison
Yes,
because
it
Richard
is.
Hernania
He
is no
literally
longer
made up the framework for what is still existing for part of 2025, which is being implemented by the president. So the difference is that this
in all due respect, you don't understand.
The big takeaway from this is that as we get closer to the midterms, it's going to be a free-for-all in the United States. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. Now, what the barleys do is detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. When you do that, that's going to help to boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, help you to recover after a workout, help with joint health, help with the cardiovascular system and brain function. Because when you're soaking up those free radicals and bringing down that inflammation, your organ systems perform better. But you're also detoxifying your body. Now, you get all the benefits also in Gladiator barley as you have in the heirloom barley. You get one extra benefit, and that is building muscle. So take the Gladiator barley, do some resistance training, and gain that musculature. You can stack this with also the Myotrol to help build muscle. It's a great supplement, and if you're an athlete, I highly recommend taking the Boomer Boost, the Myotrol, and the Gladiator barley together to help you get all the nutrients you need for your sport. Now, I also have structural nanosilver in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form called Renew. Now with structural nanosilver, it's dual purpose. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can put it on a cut. It'll help to heal the cut quicker, about 1/3 of the time. And during the cold season and the allergy season, put it on your hands, around your nose, and lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. So please go to my store. Make sure you have some of the structural nanosilver gel available in your home or at work. You never know when you need it. Use discount 5 and you can get $5 off any order. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now we're going to play a video by MS Now about the charts that are going to be presented by Steve Ratner.
Improve the nation's economy when he took office for the second time. And now, 18 months later, Americans continue to say they are not seeing the benefits. Former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner joins us now with charts. Yes, you see them. The charts are here, and he'll be fact-checking the promises that Trump has made about the economy, starting with the national debt. Good morning, Steve. Take it away.
Good morning, Jonathan. Yeah, you could call this segment "Promises Made, Promises Not Kept." And there are many to talk about on the economy, things like inflation. He promised to get gas prices down to $2 and so forth. But I want to talk about just a couple of those today and really start with the budget deficit and national debt. So Trump, of course, promised that he would cut the deficit sharply during his term. That actually hasn't happened. If you look at the deficit, actually, we can go back all the way to Obama. He left the country with less than $1 trillion deficit. That sounds almost a little bit quaint today. We obviously had COVID. But here's Trump. And so he came in and the budget deficit was $1.8 trillion the year before he arrived. Now it's $1.9 trillion. It's going to stay at $1.9 trillion. And the Congressional Budget Office projects it will go up to $2.5 trillion. How did this happen? Why did this happen? A lot of it is the one big beautiful bill. You'll remember the tax cuts that Trump put in place, which he said were going to juice the economy and get growth going, and that they would in effect pay for themselves. None of that has really happened. You can see that in the national debt. When you start to add these numbers to our debt, obviously the debt goes up. We just crossed 100% national debt relative to the size of the economy. That's a psychological figure, but nonetheless something people pay attention to. We are on track to hit 106% debt to GDP, which would actually surpass the World War II record. And that is going to come actually 2 years sooner than we thought it was going to come, because the Trump deficits actually are going up instead of down. And then by 2036, it could reach 120% of GDP.
So, Steve, your second chart analyzes the savings promised through the now defunct Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, as well as sweeping tariffs. So let's take a look now at some of the claims made by DOGE head Elon Musk and President Trump.
But we set up DOGE.
Yes.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget.
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
Yes.
$2 trillion.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it's either it becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
As you know, we're taking in trillions of dollars from tariffs, and they've been so incredible for our country, so incredible. We're keeping our companies happy, we're keeping them solid and sane, and they're very, very thrilled at what's happened. They can't even believe it. And we've never seen investment like this without the tariffs, and we would have just a fraction of that. And we're really the only one that can do tariffs. Nobody else is able to do them.
So, Steve, were they right about any of that?
Well, they were right in their goals, but not right in the execution. It's actually pretty funny to listen to it. So, yeah, part of, again, what I said before of how they were going to deal with the deficit was cut taxes, but also cut spending. And you heard Elon Musk talk about $2 trillion they were going to cut over some unspecified period of time. By their own claims, the stuff they have put out, they claim a number of $215 billion. However, they put up what was called a wall of receipts. They put up sort of a list of all the cuts that they had thought they had achieved. And when you actually add them up, it comes to $35 billion plus or minus. And a bunch of private experts have tried to look at this number as well, gone to the same place. So they didn't really cut spending at all in any material way. And of course, other kinds of spending continue to go up. I love the fact that Trump was talking about trillions of dollars of tariff revenue. You'll see at the peak month that only hit $32 billion. And so this would have to go on for many, many, many months. I can't even calculate the number in my head to get to trillions of dollars. But then the Supreme Court ruled. And so what was becoming income to the federal government, helping with the deficit, suddenly has now become returning money to the people who paid those tariffs, companies, and that is actually obviously a negative for the deficit.
And that's a problem. That's a problem because what happened was that the government's paying back the companies that charge customers higher prices. Now those companies sold goods at a higher price, and those companies paid the tariff. But the thing is, the end result here is that when the government is paying the companies back, who really paid the tariff? The U.S. citizen. The United States consumer. Trump sets a tariff, the companies bring it up, the price up, they sell it, they probably made a little bit more profit than normal. But let's just say that the profit is the same, that they only raise the price the exact amount of the tariff, the consumer purchases it, gives the money to the company, everything's hunky-dory, right? And then SCOTUS says, no, you can't do that. You have to pay the companies back. So the government's now writing checks to the company. So the company actually had a windfall. And who paid for that windfall? The American taxpayer, the consumer. So it was corporate, this was just corporatism. Amazing, stupid. This is what I mean about Trump. He made it even worse. He made it worse for the American public. The American consumer, it was worse off with this tariff issue because he had to pay to the companies. He should have paid to the consumer, the end consumer.
Tariffs are on their way from not even being a positive, but potentially being a negative, and helping that $1.9 trillion deficit.
Elon Musk feels like a character for another lifetime there, but I suspect we'll see a lot of Democratic ads this fall. So, Steve, your final chart addresses Trump's claims about his ability to boost America's manufacturing industry. Let's take a look at what the president told small business owners this past May.
One of the strongest effects of our tax cuts and tariffs is the Trump manufacturing boom is what they're calling it, because that's what we have. We've never had anything like what's happening now. And when I talk about, again, the $18 trillion that's coming in and building places.
So, Steve, a lot of bravado there, but where do things actually stand among manufacturing jobs right now?
Yeah, again, it's kind of incredible to hear the president describe himself as the manufacturing president, and I applaud his ambitions, but let's just talk about what the reality is. The reality is that manufacturing, obviously you had COVID and all the stuff going on, but it got as high as 12.9 million jobs back here. And then it started to decline, and it simply continued to decline under Trump. So in fact, rather than gaining any manufacturing jobs, we've lost 75,000 manufacturing jobs since Trump arrived. He also likes to talk about the building boom. I think on the show yesterday, he talked about $19 trillion of new investment in America. That is obviously a crazy number. But in any event, when you look at something like factory building, you can see that the factory building went up sharply under Biden. A lot of this had to do with the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, incentives for clean energy. Companies were out building stuff. Then it peaked, and now it has just been going down under Trump, down to a $175 billion rate from a peak of $250 billion. Trump also likes to talk about data centers and how much they're going to help with this manufacturing boom, so to speak. And in fact, you can see data center construction has gone up a bit. It's up to $43 billion, but not nearly enough to compensate for how much actual factory loss has been achieved. And of course, data centers employ not so many people. Factories employ a lot of people. So again, no manufacturing boom, no manufacturing renaissance evident in any of the numbers. And tariffs played a role in this. They raised the cost of steel and aluminum and discouraged businesses from building manufacturing facilities here.
Morning, Joe. Economic analyst Steve Ratner with a banger set of charts this morning. Steve, thank you so much.
This is the reason why I keep on saying that Trump is making things worse, not making things better. You know, at the beginning, it seemed as though things were working out, but he just adds more and more instability. And when you have a society that is run by several variables and you change all the variables even a little bit, you could get unexpected consequences. And he's changing all these variables thinking that everything's going to be just fine. And it's not. It's not. People are having problems going to the grocery store and making sure that, you know, they're feeding their family. People are having problems. This K-shaped economy is an issue. So Trump needs to get off his ass and actually start fixing things and stop being the developer that can make deals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. Collagen will help to remodel your joints, help to build up that cartilage and help to remodel that cushioning of the joint. This will also reduce the pain by blocking the pain gatekeeper, NAV 1.7. This will reduce inflammation by blocking EP4, and it will help to stop the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. It's a great way to help your joints if you have arthritis or a sports injury. Now, collagen also helps with helping with remodeling the joint. It helps with the skin, the hair, the nails, your musculature, and your bone density. So take the collagen every day. I highly recommend that you take these together if you're remodeling the joint because of arthritis or a sports injury. Another thing that you should be doing is if you have a joint that is problematic, open it up to the point of pain and then open it up slightly more, count to 20 or 30 seconds and do that 3 times. Do that every day. And what you'll be able to do is be able to open up the joint more. You either can extend or flex the joint more with less pain over time. And by doing this exercise regularly, you're sending these micro signals to remodel the joint, and you have the building blocks to help with the joint remodeling with the collagen. And the collagen helps to recruit those building blocks, stop the erosion, stop the inflammation. So please go to my store, get the collagen and the collagen to remodel the joints. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
My parents didn't finish college, and I was the first person to go to college. It was such a long road with school.
Okie doke, time to get down to business in less than 30 minutes from now. The Trump administration's top trade official will testify before the Senate Finance Committee. It comes as the president is set to impose 50%, 50% tariffs on Canada. And now with this temporary 10% tariff on almost all U.S. imports is set to expire this Friday, the administration is warning there are a whole lot more on the way.
We expect to see some action soon. I can't really specify a timeline right now. I have a responsibility to brief Congress and other stakeholders before I really reveal that kind of thing. But we do expect action soon.
And I've got one question. Why? Joining me now, Justin Wolfers, Professor of Economics and Public Policy at the University of Michigan, and Bernie Greeley, contributing editor for the Financial Times and author of the new book, The Almighty Dollar, 500 Years of the World's Most Powerful Money. If there's an economist in your life, pick up this book. Okay, Brendan, we got it. Clearly, the president wants tariffs. He loves tariffs. I speak to tons of CEOs who tell me he's never going to get rid of them. There's nothing he loves more than being the kingmaker, having business leaders, having country leaders come in and say, please, sir, may I have a break? However, viewers, for the last... If the Supreme Court down the tariffs, on what planet can this president reinstate them?
Challenge is the Constitution gives the right to negotiate trade policy to Congress. Unfortunately, trade act after trade act after trade act for the last 50 years, Congress has given the president, the White House, some power to do things on his behalf. And so right now, the U.S. Trade Representative, Jameson Greer, is an experienced lawyer from Skadden Arps, a storied firm in D.C. And he understands trade law, it seems like, better than absolutely anyone. And so
loopholes.
There are loopholes. Yes, there are loopholes. And so there's a new loophole. What the Supreme Court struck down was a previous loophole having to do with national security. And the one that we're looking at now is a different loophole. The U.S. is claiming that countries all over the world are using forced labor. That's an unfair practice. And so that allows the president to impose these tariffs. But I absolutely agree with you. This is not part of any kind of coherent economic plan. This is about dominance. The president likes to impose tariffs because it's something that he, big manly man, can do, and then everybody has to beg him for some sort of a reprieve. He's put himself at the center of attention. Once again, that's the purpose of these tariffs. They're not policy.
But do you know what the manliest of manly men really like to do?
I'm waiting.
Tell the truth. Justin, the president said the reason for these tariffs is to bring manufacturing back to the United States. This is more than a year after he announced Liberation Day. Manufacturing is down in this country. Who's believing this?
Well, first of all, Steph, I've got to pick you up on something here. The manliest of manly men, they like to hug.
You know what? That's true. That is true.
But actually,
yeah, I'm going to tell you something. They like to do more than that. But I digress.
Oh, Steph, stop boasting.
Okay, you know, you two were asking, but I realize that the show is now 9 a.m. I know. Okay, focus.
I am focused. I'm laser focused because the point here that manly men like to hug is actually a very important labour market point. The president has an understanding of masculinity, of society, and the American economy from the 1950s. In the 1950s, Dad packed a briefcase, went to work, sexually harassed a secretary when he was there, may or may not work in manufacturing. The jobs of the future are not in manufacturing. The jobs of the future are, in fact, in caring occupations. Our economy has changed. When our economy's changed, our economic policy has to change. President Trump's trying to bring back the lunch pail jobs of the 1950s. He's got glorious memories of those days, I guess. I actually quite like the present. I like the fact that I can work from home. I like the fact that work doesn't leave people feeling injured and in pain. There's so much to like about a modern economy, but a modern economy requires modern jobs. All of the jobs, but all the work the president has done to bring back manufacturing jobs, more than all the jobs that have been created under his watch have been in healthcare and social assistance. And it's time for him to stop talking about steel-toed boots and talk about the future of the real economy, which is real men hug, real men care, and real men are capable of something other than manufacturing.
Well, real men and women like to be healthy and thriving. The president threatened 100% tariffs on generic drugs starting August of 2028. That is a long way away. But he said it's to force companies to manufacture those drugs in the United States. We're obviously talking, Brennan, about the affordability squeeze. What would that do?
It's impossible to know how reshoring works under this president because it's so wildly inconsistent. He says he wants to reshore, but there are a lot of things that drive the kind of innovation that goes into a big pharmaceutical sector. One of them is education. The White House just said you can only get a visa to study in America for 4 years. That means you cannot come here to do a Ph.D. I'm getting a Ph.D. right now. I'm surrounded by brilliant people from all over the world. They want to cut that short. That is a huge engine of American innovation. It happens in biotech, it happens in pharmaceuticals, it happens in tech. What happens is people come from all over the world and they innovate here. We're cutting that off while saying we're going to force foreigners to come back here. We haven't seen the evidence of reshoring. It's not just that manufacturing jobs aren't rising when you look at the numbers. I looked at the data, this morning, and manufacturing itself is going up in exactly one sector. It's computer equipment. It's the peripherals that are all going into building AI centers. Everything else is either flat or declining. So whatever the president's policy is, you cannot force remanufacturing the lunch pail jobs that Justin is talking about with tariffs. All they do is make Donald Trump feel good.
For the moment. You know what's not flat? Gas prices. That is something people are watching because they have to fill their tanks every day. Of course, they're back to more than $4 a gallon. Now, Justin, an Iranian-backed rebel group, the Houthis, are threatening to block another shipping channel. What is that going to do to oil prices?
Well, we've seen this playing.
Watch hit movies and TV shows on YouTube. Stream Project Hail Mary now.
Well, we've seen this playing. We know actually how it plays out pretty well. The world, here's the backstory. The world's a complicated place. No one made the globe to be a whole bunch of perfect squares that make it easy to trade. There are various choke points throughout it. The Strait of Hormuz is another. The Houthis have figured out there's another one and they may have leverage. So this Iran war, it's put on the table. Previously, we thought the seas were free, everyone could ship through it, and that's how we would create trade and all of us be able to get the energy that we need. This war is put back on the table. In fact, you can take over these choke points. We're really cranky that the Iranians did it. Do you know the second person who wanted to do this? It was President Trump. President Trump at some point said he was going to take over the Strait of Hormuz. He thought that the laws surrounding this are up for grabs and it's the law of might rather than the law of right. And not surprisingly, when that's the how you set things up, that other countries and other groups are following the same thing. So what's going to happen? Less oil gets through, gas prices go up. It's not just going to be an oil and gas story that's the easy one to sell, but you just splinter the world, you make economic life harder, things get more expensive, and we end up producing less.
And yet, despite all of that, Brendan Greeley, the market's up.
Yeah, well, they don't really care about what's going on in the Middle East, and they haven't for a very long time. How Trump does in these negotiations, how things work out with Iran, it's been clear for a long time that to markets that's irrelevant, because what's going on is America has big, robust capital markets, and we have growth right now in the AI sector, and that's going to pay off for somebody at some point pretty soon.
All right, then. Brendan Greeley, thank you. Justin Wolfers, thank you so much.
All right, let's switch to Bloomberg here.
Very closely, especially with these hyperscalers. I'm leaning toward quality, certainly quality of balance sheet, free cash flow, operating margins, etc. But quality looks different today than it did like 3 years ago. We had gotten pretty comfortable leaning on some of these hyperscalers as quality names, but it's not that they're not quality, but we do have to take a second look because of all the leverage that's going up. So these are the conversations we're having. There's this stuff that we used to be able to depend on may not be as dependable, and it may mean something as small as, just changing the weights a little bit and looking for other opportunities.
Okay. Then what are the new utilities in 2026?
Well, the new utilities seem to be these hyperscalers. I mean, even if you think about SpaceX, Inside of it, the AI company is really turning into an infrastructure company too. I mean, recently there was news about, I can't remember, is it AMD? It was a company that actually is partnering with SpaceX to make data centers. So, infrastructure is changing, utilities is changing. It's not just about energy. Energy certainly is one of them, but I do think that data centers and all of these web services are going to be so important in our lives. They end up becoming like utilities.
All right, Anna, thanks so much. Appreciate it. As always, Anna Rampin, Chief Executive Officer of Benediga Advisory, based out there in Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland's like the great music school out there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cleveland is home to Case Western, right?
Yeah, but Anna's a trained professional.
Oh, okay.
Singer.
That's different.
Yeah, big time. And that's Cleveland's got a great Philharmonic out there. So I'm told from the folks who know this stuff. More earnings here today. Philip Morris, Think Cigarettes. Now, PM is the ticker. Some numbers out today. Stocks up about 1.65%. Stocks at 52-week high of 19% year to date. Plus, you get a 3% dividend yield. So, Philip Morris shareholders have been quite happy. Let's bring Ken Shea. He's been following this company since the beginning of time for Bloomberg Intelligence. He's seen all the iterations of Philip Morris and Altria and all that kind of stuff.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 60 nutrients that will help to slow down the aging process, boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, help with cardiovascular health, help with brain function, help to control your A1C levels, help to control your BMI, help to control your blood glucose levels. Really important. Many people have that problem in the United States. This will help. This stacks really well with the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. And with Boomer Boost, you get all of the vitamins and minerals and other supplements that you need on a daily basis to help slow down that aging process. So this can be used as your multivitamin. Now you can stack this with C60, that's a great stack. Another way, like I said, stack it with the Gladiator barley or heirloom barley. But my core protocol is the following. The probiotic is the foundation, and then the pillars on that foundation. The first pillar, max 35 or cleanse to help boost up that innate immune system. C60 is soak up free radicals. Turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, the third pillar, very important to help boost up that immune system and endocrine system, help with the cardiovascular system and brain function. And Boomer Boost. Get that steady burn of energy, no spiking. You'll have more vitality. Your energy levels will be higher. You'll want to move around more. You'll be more active. Your brain function improves. And you get all these other benefits that I just mentioned. So please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. It's very important to take every day. And I also have C60. C60, you can get in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get the higher ounce configuration. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. C60 has to be in oil for proper absorption. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, preferably on an empty stomach for proper absorption. C60 is 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. A teaspoon a day is all you need. And you'll also notice that you recover quicker after a workout. You'll have more energy. It soaks up free radicals, boosts up the health of the mitochondria, and you'll have more ATP. It also helps to bring down inflammation and bring down stress in the tissues. So your organ systems will perform better. Your immune system, your endocrine system, brain function, cardiovascular system will improve. By soaking up those free radicals at the vascular system, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL, therefore you're reducing plaque buildup. And for your brain, your neurons will be healthier and they will connect better. Therefore, you're going to be thinking faster and have better memory. And C60 stacks really well with the resveratrol to improve the basal layer of your skin. So your skin looks healthier, is healthier, looks younger.
So please go to my store and get the C60 and do it before and after. Take this every day. Take a picture of yourself before you start this protocol and then do it for 1 year and you will notice that you look younger. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of my broadcast. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Please share the links and help support the work that I do by making sure that you subscribe to all the channels. All the links are in the description of this video. And get the great products that I offer at the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in this description. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.